Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this, the Clown Decade. The decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And today we are going through this stupid cartoon, this little comic book that was put on Twitter by MSF, which appears to be the Spanish branch of Doctors Without Borders, or Médecins Sans Frontières. Could be French, I'm not sure, it's some European language. You could probably tell I didn't do very well at my languages at GCSE, but anyway. Quick background to MSF. They're an international independent medical humanitarian organisation who provide medical assistance to people affected by conflicts, epidemics, disasters, or exclusion from healthcare. Our teams are made up of tens of thousands of health professionals, logistic and administrative staff. Most of them hired locally. Our actions are guided by medical ethics and the principles of impartiality, independence and neutrality. I think that's the most important point here. And they have counters for all the good work they've done. And I know people who've worked with Doctors Without Borders before, and the medical staff are just there to help people and don't particularly want politics to get in the way of these things. However, I also know some people there who would probably be quite happy with the comic that we're about to go through. But yes, Doctors Without Borders, NGO, supposed to be there just to get healthcare to people who can't get it for whatever reason, and they are supposed to be impartial, independent and neutral. Anyway, back to this comic that is totally impartial, independent and neutral. This is the story of Imran, a teenage Badoon from Kuwait who tried to reach the UK 20 times. On his last attempt he almost died and witnessed his friend drowning. And apparently his name has been changed to protect his identity. Which is a bit strange. Why would you need to protect the identity of a refugee? But anyway, Imran wanted his identity protected, so he has his identity protected. Imran comes from Kuwait. He lived there with his father. They were persecuted because they are Badoons, who are a stateless minority. They have no rights, they sell vegetables, and they only have makeshift housing. And Badoons are indeed a stateless peoples in Kuwait, or mainly in Kuwait. And there's this weird obsession in the 21st century that basically that matters. Because when we really get down to it, the Welsh have been a stateless people for, well, centuries. Sure, they have a devolved parliament, but ultimately they do not have their own independent state. They are part of the United Kingdom, which is effectively England as head of the United Nations, which are Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland and obviously England. And while you do get an awful lot of nationalist types and Plaid Cymru and what have you, the people who say that they are persecuted are often seen as ridiculous. You can obviously have a stateless minority that aren't persecuted, but it appears that the Badoons are actually somewhat persecuted because they can't access the country's basic services due to sectarian politics. And according to Wikipedia, a large number of stateless Badoon regularly immigrate to Europe as asylum seekers. The UK is the most popular destination for Badoon asylum seekers. According to the Home Office, Kuwait is the 8th largest source of asylum seekers crossing the English Channel on small boats in 2021. And I'm not going to lie, if you're stateless, I don't think that gives you a good enough reason to just come to the UK like this. And honestly, we'll go through this story and you'll see why it just breaks the whole asylum seekers narrative that, oh, these are just people that definitely want to come over and they have no other choice. No, we're going to see what happens here. In August 2020, at the age of 13, I participated in the Badoons protest in Timor. They want citizenship rights, blah 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 blah. I am sure this is exactly all the protest was about. He was arrested and after being released from prison decided to leave Kuwait. And look at how he travelled. This looks like a direct path to get to Britain. He goes to Turkey, through to Greece, through to Germany, through to France. Bear in mind this was in 2020, so it was after we had left the European Union, but this is a perfect example of why a lot of people wanted Brexit. Because of the Schengen zone. As soon as you get into Greece, you have a free ride through Germany to France. There's barely any passport checks unless you get a plane. You can just go through the entirety of Europe basically without being checked, and he makes it all the way to Calais. This screams to me that his plan from the start was just to come to Britain. Apparently at the ripe old age of 13, he lived and worked for 2 years in Germany, but he was then expelled overnight, probably because he shouldn't have been there. He probably applied for asylum, and it was probably rejected. So then he hops, picks and chooses to go to the UK next. Because once again, our borders are way too open and the stuff we give people who literally hop over on a boat is absolutely absurd. And does he try and come over legally? Does he? Heck. In a month and a half, I've tried to cross at least 20 times. He tried to cross 20 times and he didn't make it. Most of the times he failed because of the police or because of nearly drowning. Yes, because you are doing something illegal. I do not care what you have come over for. I don't care if you have the best refugee case known to man. This is not how we do things in Britain. Or shouldn't be anyway. If your first act is to break our law, I don't want you here. And this is one of those cases that I just have to show people who say, oh, if you're willing to risk your life coming over, surely it's because your life's in danger. No, this guy's life isn't in danger. He was in Germany, he got kicked out because he shouldn't have been there, he then goes to France, presumably he gets refused asylum there because he shouldn't be there, and now what? Are we really the last port here? Was it really Britain that was the only other place he could choose? Not the Netherlands, not Belgium, not Denmark, not Norway, Sweden, not anywhere to the further east. No, he had to come to Britain. Why did he want to come to Britain? Because we are the worst at getting rid of these people and we give handouts. That is why he came here, but Doctors Without Borders, they're never going to say that. The police tactics to stop them breaking the law, by the way? Apparently they intervened violently. Are they saving lives or endangering them? So some of their methods include puncturing boats. Okay, I guess that's technically violence. Tear gas. Yes, again, there's a big crowd of you and you're doing illegal things. Batons. Yes, once again, you're criminals. And rubber bullet guns. Well, no, that would just be rubber bullets. What's a rubber bullet gun? I don't know. But yes, I find it absolutely absurd that people are breaking laws and then effectively saying, why are the police doing stuff that enforce laws? Wow, this is worse than Kuwait. I suppose another thing that I have to point out here is that, again, a big thing that a lot of people on the left do here, especially Doctors Without Borders, is just take these people at their word. Like, I am fully aware that as I went through earlier in this video, the Badoons, indeed, are probably somewhat of a persecuted minority. They will be, to some extent. But the thing is that the way that this guy is hopping between Turkey, Greece, Germany, France and Britain, it makes it very hard to actually think, well, clearly you're not just after a slightly better life. Clearly you are shopping around for the best life that you can get. Well, apparently doing it doing it through illegal means. Again, a thing you have to bear in mind is that if you are crossing the channel, you're paying thousands and thousands of pounds to do that. It's not a free service. It's quite an expensive one because the people running these gangs, obviously it's a high-risk venture, it's illegal. So these people aren't these poor, defenceless refugees generally. They are just people trying to shop around for somewhere that, sure, maybe isn't as bad as where they are, but their life isn't in danger where they are, generally speaking. And if they are from somewhere where their life isn't in danger, they will just say that they are from somewhere where their life is in danger, because, frankly, as much a meme as it is, if they come without documents, people are just going to assume that, yeah, if you look like you're from the Arab country, you could come from any of them. You know, Europeans don't really know the nuanced differences between someone looking Iranian from Kuwait or, from Afghanistan. So this is why I'm so unsympathetic, because, frankly, I think the guy's lying. Why do I think he's lying? Well, he's willing to break laws. Someone who is willing to break laws generally would lie about the fact that they are guilty of breaking a law. So at the end of October, despite apparently being shot at and tear-gassed and beaten with batons, he tried again to cross with 70 people from different countries, which again, once they get to Britain, they'll probably all say they're from Kuwait. The police tried to stop us again. Yes, again. I love how this picture has a police with a knife. But yes, again, you are breaking the law. And it's honestly one of the things I've found surprising. The French police do actually try and stop these boats, but the problem is that there's so many of them and it's so decentralised as a system that they actually have trouble getting them all. So realistically, we would probably be seeing hundreds of thousands more of people crossing the channel than we are seeing now because of the French police. So our millions sent to the French aren't a total waste, but it could definitely have been spent better. And in this kerfuffle, there was horror and fear. My friends died in front of me. We were drowning together and I couldn't do anything. Well, I am very sorry to hear that your friend died drowning in the channel. Obviously, that is horrible and a tragedy, but the obvious does need to be pointed out. Not only were you doing something illegal, but you are doing something that doesn't come without dangers. albeit it is still fairly safe to cross the channel, especially on calmer days. But at the end of the day, my sympathy only goes so far. You knew what the risks were, you knew what you were getting into. From the looks of it, you're not a genuine refugee anyway, at least not by German standards. So what sympathy am I supposed to have? I know you're lying in this story of yours. I don't even think you're 17. At this point, again, I'm taking it at your word that you watched your friend die. And at the end of the day, sure, we have a coast guard that by law has to come over and save you. But realistically, this isn't particularly what the people of Britain want to pay for people trying to illegally come into the country, breaking a law by default, to then effectively have our tax money put into saving you and putting you in our publicly funded hospitals. All while you are a rejected refugee from elsewhere in Europe, where supposedly we should have the same standards at the very least. But as I say, we have a system that is working as intended, effectively thinking that it is our job to save absolutely everybody in the world. And I'm sorry, I don't have much sympathy for that, because there's an awful lot of people here who are struggling. And where exactly are we supposed to go? Anyway, Iram ends up in hospital, feeling despair. He woke up 8 days later because he was in an 8-day coma. Again, crossing the border illegally, and then his care within his coma bought and paid for by the British taxpayer. Now, I'm not saying that we should have left him to die in the channel. That is obviously going too far. However, it should be largely appreciated that already this man, what he's broken the law and what's his reward, take out of the British system more than he's put in by default. I mean, that's on top of the fact that he's going to have a police investigation, Home Office are going to have to see if he's a refugee or not. While that's all happening, he's going to get further health checkups. You know, there are people in hotels right now getting private dental and health care, or because it takes pressure off our NHS. And what native British person paying into the system gets that? The answer is none. And in fact, if you pay for that, you have to pay further taxes on it. I'm just highlighting the absolute absurdity in this story, and I'm supposed to feel bad for this guy. I'm sorry, I just don't. I'm sorry you nearly drowned, but frankly, you should never have been in a position to even think about crossing the channel. I put the fault squarely on our own government rather than you, Imran. But realistically, as I say, everything's failing in our system, and it's everything to do with our government. Successive ones. Labour, Tory, doesn't matter. Both of them are complicit. But I think this has to be the worst image of them all. I want to go to Britain no matter what, which sounds a lot more like a threat than a dream. There we can live and have rights. Once again, I want to point out, this is not someone coming over to try and be British. This is not someone coming over to try and integrate. This is someone saying out loud, I want to go to Britain effectively to have free stuff, because that's what have rights means in Britain. Nobody in Britain thinks to have rights means that you can kill someone in self-defence if it's necessary. That's not, well, the law does say that to an extent, but we're not allowed to go around and arm ourselves for our own defence. We're not even allowed to have pepper spray. When it comes to free speech, obviously that's a complete joke, let alone all the details of the two-tier system that my channel has covered many times in the past. I don't really need to go into detail for it. But realistically, what I can live in Britain and have rights means is I get a load of free stuff. First thing he did when he came over is he got free stuff. He got free healthcare to cover his 8-day coma, and then he'll probably get aftercare. This is what this panel means. This is not someone who wants to pay into the system. This is someone who just wants to extract. The rest of the story, as far as I care, is it could be 100% true. It doesn't matter. We should not have a system where this is acceptable. And it allows for Doctors Without Borders to make this ridiculous propaganda. Because this story is what the left wing think every refugee is. Oh, I'm really a person who's arrested for absolutely no reason whatsoever in Kuwait, and therefore, you know, I'm going to be oppressed. You know, oh, I'm from Pakistan or something. There, they chop your hand off if you're caught thieving. Well, I can't have that. I want to come to Britain where I can thieve, and 90% of the time it's not investigated. It was pointed out by Caliban, the ex-load seater turned travel documentary maker, that an awful lot of people from, say, Afghanistan, they will be coming over pretending to be the type of people that were allied to the US and UK during the Civil War over there. And realistically, a lot of people who are actually criminals there and at threat of having their hand chopped off, as I say, for thieving, for example, they obviously don't want to live in that Taliban regime where they are probably actually criminals and are at risk of being caught out. But obviously, you can kind of tell a half-truth. Oh, I'm being oppressed by the Taliban under this, oppressive system, whatever, where they deal out harsh punishments. I need refuge from that. And they don't have to necessarily tell the UK what they did, but they will effectively be trying to get away from crime that in the UK is also a crime. There will be people doing that, but we have absolutely no way to vet it, because basically if someone's not got documentation, the Home Office just take them at their word. And it turns out Doctors Without Borders do it too. But then you get to this panel and the mask slips by accident because they don't realise that have rights means take free stuff. That's all it means. Because as I say, every system and every law that gives us rights has been bastardised to some extent. As I say, free speech non-existent. You can barely defend yourself. Hell, we're now passing laws that stop porridge oats from being advertised on TV. People don't come here to have rights. People come here to extract what they can, because we have a really bad system and that can't say no to people that obviously don't deserve these sorts of things. Anyway, it finishes off with one of the weirdest panels I've seen in my life. In Europe, or the European Union, we have no rights. Which I find is one of the absolute craziest things to say when he lived in Germany for 2 years, and when he was denied his refugee status. He didn't get deported, no, he got to hop off across these borders that really should be enforced, and really in 10 years probably will be enforced harder than you've ever seen. But again, why is he saying this? Well, because, again, he worked in Germany apparently between the ages of 13 and 17. I don't believe him. Mainly because Germany has child labour laws. Having a quick look, you can only start work from the age of 17, and even, from the age of 13, and even between 13 and 15, you're only allowed to do 2 hours per week of work, and your parents have to consent to it. Sorry, it's 2 hours per day for a certain amount of days a week. You get the idea. It's very light work, and I don't believe that's what he was doing. 16 and above, you can work several weeks in a row during the summer holidays, or a few hours on a regular basis. Again, you're not allowed to be in full-time employment. But again, this guy's lying about his age, so I don't believe that he worked for 2 years in Germany, because it doesn't even sound like his parents came with him. So again, as I say, there's a lot of holes in this story, and this is just pure propaganda from Doctors Without Borders. And at the end of it, they say, oh, in Europe they have no rights. Oh, well, get Amnesty International on it then. We're constantly told by these NGOs that Britain is one of the most racist countries in the world, and our rights, especially say to protest, are completely under threat, but now they're trying to say the opposite. Actually, Britain is the beacon of rights when it comes to the entirety of Europe. And as I say, the real reason for this is that all they mean is that basically if you come from anywhere in the world, you can just lie to our Home Office and whatever and get all this free stuff. Get a free hotel room, get private healthcare. Oh, you're told to leave? Well, guess what? That gets delayed pretty much indefinitely. Oh, you get lost in the system? Well, no one cares. No one's going to look for you. This is what they mean by rights. It basically means people have license to do what they want because we are incapable of actually enforcing the rights of the citizens, which is effectively that we should not be harassed by strangers. And yet here we are. We have to actually pay for them to come out of comas because, as I say, they're going to get free stuff when they come over and they know it. Anyway, I think that's enough for that comic for now. I don't want to go on too much of a rant. It is Christmas Eve tomorrow after all. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video in terms of shilling. I think from my streaming side, there's not definitely going to be anything till the 3rd of January, in which there will be a Laughing at the Guardian. We have a guest from the Lotus Eaters on, so do look forward to that. And then obviously it's back to your usual Antiquity streams on Monday, still on the Peloponnesian Wars. And then there will be a Tosh Talks to bring in the new year on the 7th of January, so do look forward to that. In terms of what you can do now, please do become a subscriber, do become a channel member. I have 20 members now. You guys are absolutely amazing. Do send super chats and super thanks. Again, plenty of people have been doing that on streams and in some videos as well. Cannot thank you enough. If I don't get around to making a video tomorrow, which I'll be honest, I probably won't, then do have a very, very Merry Christmas, and I do hope that you have a great time with your family and friends or whoever you happen to be seeing. Videos from me will be out as and when I can make them. I just about managed to make one for you today because today ended up being very busy, but here we are. Always got you in mind. So, once again, thank you very much for watching. If I don't make another video tomorrow, as I say, very Merry Christmas to you. And with that, I bid you goodbye.